But I'll try and run the meeting smoothly and make note of those online that have got their hands up, so don't worry. And if I do miss you for any length of time, then do shout or whatever you have to do from in an online case. This is the meeting of the Wye Valley National Landscape Joint Advisory Committee, 9th of March. What I'd like to do is just to go round the members in the room first and then online, just to give me an idea of who you are and which group or organisation you're representing. So I'll begin on my left with Andrew.
Yeah, afternoon everyone. Andrew Blake, Wye Valley National Landscape Manager.
Gloucestershire County Council Senior Planning Officer.
Hello, I'm Jonty Pearce, a member of the public and also chair of the Dixton Bats project.
Thank you. I'm Anne Webb. I'm the Monmouthshire County Council representative on National Landscapes, and I represent St Albans, Llandogo and Tintern. That's my ward. Thank you.
I'm Catherine Laidlaw. I'm the planning officer with the Wye Valley National Landscape team.
Councillor Dave Wheeler from the Forest of Dean District Council. My ward covers Newland, Sling and Staunton. And Redbrook.
Councillor Emma Bryn, County Councillor for Wysham Ward in Monmouth. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. Now going online, can I ask Stephen first to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Councillor Steve Garrett from Monmouthshire County Council. I represent Overmono Ward in Monmouth, which was recently flooded, as was I, and also on the Town Council as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dale?
Hi, I'm Councillor Dale, County Councillor Dale Rook, representing Chepstow Castle and Larkfield Ward, MCC representative on this committee.
Thank you, thank you. And Richard?
I'm Richard Williams, Monmouthshire County Council Democratic Services.
Thank you. And then Catherine?
Hi there, my name is Catherine Hines. I work for the NFU and started as County Advisor for Herefordshire.
Brilliant, nice to see you.
Thank you.
And Colette?
Hi, Colette Bosley. I'm the Countryside Destination Environment Manager for Monmouthshire County Council. I sit on the steering group.
Brilliant. Okay, do we have any more, or is this just the one screen?
I think that's everyone.
Great, brilliant. Thank you for that. I'm Chris McFarling. I'm the chair of the Joint Advisory Committee and a councillor at Forest of Dean District Council and a councillor at Gloucestershire County Council. Right, we'll begin the agenda with declarations of interest. Oh, sorry, apologies for absence. Richard, are you able to?
Yes, Chair. We've had apologies. We've had apologies from Emma Johnson, Helen O'Kane, John Evans, Juliet Hines, Robert Hatton, Councillor Cole, Councillor Durkin, Councillor Hoyland, Eoin Williams, Martin Quine, and Councillor Mosley.
There's either a soccer match or something, a rugby match going on, but we have five people in the room and a few on and similarly online, but we have more apologies than we have attendees. I don't know what we do about that, but we certainly, we can't summon people, but it would be helpful if once every 4 months, reps turned up and just gave of their wisdom. Okay, I just make that point. Declarations of interest. Does anybody have any declarations of interest? If you feel you have one, then declare it as we go through the meeting. And now public question time. Do we have any public questions? Jonty.
Hello, I'm Jonty Pearce. My question is, the planning inspector will hold public hearings on the Monmouthshire Replacement Local Development Plan between the 16th of June and the 16th of July this year. The hearings have been postponed after the planning inspector concluded that Monmouthshire County Council had not provided sufficient evidence on the phosphate impacts on the River Wye and the River Usk special areas of conservation, and had not used the latest population projections in determining the plan. One of the most contentious allocations in the plan is the highly visible 270 dwelling site at Dixton Road in Monmouth, which is within the setting of the Wye Valley National Landscape. The National Landscape has previously submitted objections to this housing allocation, raising concerns about landscape harm. There are also significant impacts on water quality on the River Wye special area of conservation and negative effects on the internationally important horseshoe bats of the Wye Valley and Forest Dean Bat Sites SAC. Given the National Landscape's statutory purpose to conserve and enhance the natural beauty of the area, will the Wye Valley National Landscape be participating in the forthcoming planning inspector hearings? And if so, how will it present its concerns regarding the Dixton Road allocation?
Thank you for that. Yes, we will be responding, and we will discuss this matter more in the agenda item 4.2. So we're about to come to that. Thank you for the question. It's very appropriate at this time. I'd just like to go to Lynn Parker and Brian Jones, but Lynn Parker first, just to introduce. Could you introduce yourself, please, Lynn?
Yes. First of all, my apologies. I've been having trouble with my my version of Teams. It thinks I'm still a magistrate. It's Lynn Parker representing One Voice Wales.
Okay, thank you for that, Lynn. Can I go to Brian Jones, please? Could you introduce yourself as well, please, sir? Brian, you're still muted.
How's that?
Yeah.
Brian Jones, representing Herefordshire Association of Local Councils.
Thank you.
Sorry I'm late, I couldn't get in.
That's all right, no problem. Melanie, could you introduce yourself as well, please?
Yeah, my name's Melanie Getgood. I'm representing Colford Town Council. I couldn't get in either because I didn't have the Teams link, sorry.
Okay, it takes a bit of doing, but you're here now. Thank you.
Yeah.
James, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yep, James Bissett, Herefordshire Council, Ecology and Arb Officer, and I'm here as an observer from Herefordshire Council.
Brilliant, thank you, you're very welcome. Okay, we may have some more additions to the online audience, so but that's good, that's coming in. Right, any more public questions? In which case I'd like to confirm the minutes of the previous meeting. Brilliant, and seconded. All those in favour? Yep, okay, thank you. The minutes are approved. Matters arising, these are verbal updates, but the first one we want to go to is the Dixton Housing and Monmouthshire Local Development Plan, revised Local Development Plan today, but more importantly, how we're going to respond to the inspector's call for responses. David.
Before you get to that, you've turned yourself off, David, rather than on.
Before you get to that, and before that, on page 3, I'd like to ask about how Monmouthshire are doing with the roadside walk between Redbrook and Monmouth, please. This has been asked at this committee for at least 12 months by Councillor Brin and myself. So can Monmouthshire County Council Highways give an update, please?
Do you want to bring that forward from 4.3 or?
I can, but I assumed that was the sewage works.
No, it's not.
Oh, apologies. I assumed it was the sewage works.
Okay, so we'll do Dixton first, and then we'll do the Washam walk.
Can I just claim a non-prejudicial interest? I'm on the planning committee in Monmouthshire County Council for this.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Right. Could I declare the same interest, please, Chair?
Yeah, no problem, Dale. Okay.
I also do as well, Chair. Thank you. I'm on the
Gosh.
planning committee for Monmouthshire. Okay.
Nobody will be able to speak. You're obviously not prejudicial, you're not pecuniary, so we'll take it as another interest, and you are allowed to speak and vote. Okay, right, so we move on to the Dixon Housing and Monmouthshire Revised Local Development Plan delay and our response. Okay, Andrew.
Well, as John T so eloquently laid out, the inspection review of the local development plan in Monmouthshire was delayed, and so the following submission of the development plan to Welsh Government Inspectorate in November, the draft hearing session programme has now been published, and everything to be dealt with online through online hearing sessions, and yes, there's a 4-week period from mid-June to mid-July, although there's a week where no sessions are scheduled from the week commencing 22nd of June as well. So we wait to see how that transpires. All the documentation can be accessed online through the Monmouthshire RLDP examination page. We can share that if members haven't got access to that. All the hearing statement of questions will be sent to the council on the 5th of May, and all responses and submissions need to be submitted by the 2nd of June. So we are certainly considering or intending submitting a statement or submission reiterating our concerns with the Dixton Road site. Catherine will be leading on that, and I think probably as a form of oversight, if we share that with the chairman in drafting the response, then we can. I think that would be useful and helpful. I think, given the declarations of interest, probably doesn't make sense for any other Monmouthshire members to be involved in drafting that. But if any other members want to be party to the preparation of our response, obviously let us know, and we can. I'm sure we can bring them in on that. So yeah, that's the current status. Obviously, we'll be reviewing all the latest evidence that's available as part of the finalising of the RLDP and the statements when they're published, drawing up our response accordingly.
Thank you, Andrew. As Andrew said, if you're all happy, I'm happy to sign off, or at least put that response through at the appropriate time, because it will be before we meet again. And if you're happy to mandate me to do that, obviously I will represent the strongest possible objection that we can muster with the teams we've got. David.
Yes. Given the Forest of Dean's difficulties with its local plan, I have enormous sympathy with Monmouthshire Council, and I share the concerns about the Dixton Road development in Monmouth. However, if the number of houses that are required or dictated towards Monmouth are such that you have to put the houses somewhere, and the only other site is Wonastow Road, then while I understand the National Landscape's concern about Dixton, I imagine that Overmono would rather be considered the flooding risk, as we have seen in the last 6 months, of additional housing on Wonastow Road and Watery Lane, Watery Lane being a particularly apt road name.
Presumably it's not one or the other. There are other potential sites that could be allocated.
Not, I would have thought, round Monmouth Town, no. I think we are talking either Dixton Road or Wanstead Road. I look round to the Monmouth members, but that's my understanding, is it's one or the other.
Okay, well, in which case we have to respond to the Dixton Road allocation as it is. And we would object to as best we can, and see what happens after that.
The inspector is not considering the inspector in the planning hearings is not considering alternative sites. It's just purely about the housing allocations that have been put forward. It's quite specific in the hearing paperwork. They're not looking at alternative sites. It's just whether it is deliverable and consistent with policy and so on.
Okay. Thank you. I'd like to go to Stephen, please.
Yeah, so Overmont is my ward. There's the Druin Farm estate, which has already gone through the first stage of MCC planning. That's a separate planning application from the RLDP, which was a legacy site from when Kingswood Gate was built, and because of the phosphate issue, it was delayed. I think members do need to be aware of the phosphate issue having basically stopped any development in the north of the county, whereas the south has had a lot more development. The other, with regards to Overmono and Kingswood Gate, there is a site just going into Kingswood Gate which is earmarked for industrial opposite Siltbuster. So that's the only other area of potential development. And then there's some around the old chicken farms where the co-op is on the other in a kind of dry bridge area. But then that's also an area that recently got flooded along with the area of Wanstead Road where I live. So hope that clarifies a couple of things.
Yes, thank you, Stephen. That's great. I'd like to go to Catherine if possible. And I don't want to put you on the spot and decline if you need to. Just to give me some idea of the broad topics that you will be using to respond to the allocation, to the application and the plan.
Well, previously the crux of it has been around both the visual effects and also effects on character, as it's currently open site, and concerns around the density of housing proposed as well. In terms of subsequent evidence that has been submitted to support the plan, that will be work to do over the next few months. So that will sort of form part of our either an additional submission, or we might look at forming a statement of common ground with the county council. And also it sort of depends exactly what we focus on once we have the inspectors, MIQs, matters and questions that come through at the beginning of May. In terms of alternative locations, that's obviously sort of beyond our remit as a team and committee. We're there to protect and conserve the purposes of the national landscape, so we'll just be pushing that, and if it's a clear objection based on the harm that's likely to arise, then that's a stance we'll take, and then it will be up to the planning inspectorate to weigh up their considerations. So, yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's fine. Am I right in believing that this could be setting a precedent, that if we allow this one, or if this one is allowed through, then others might follow in the setting of the national landscape?
Very, very possibly, very likely. It's sort of worth bearing in mind for the Welsh system, sort of over in England. Obviously, we're kind of on the English side have the housing target uplifts that many of the local authorities are dealing with. In Wales, it's slightly different, but yes, if the planning balance goes in favour, it inevitably sets a precedent, and sort of seen it in because I'm shared with another national landscape team sort of over on the England side, over in the Malverns. Yeah, could well do. But because this is a local plan allocation, in terms of any subsequent planning applications that come through, obviously planning committees, planning officers always have to take each application and proposal on its own merits. So it's not always a definite that a site, say adjacent Dixon Road, if that does end up going through, would get permission. If that makes sense.
Yeah, okay. And can you remind me of what the mitigation was offered to counter the harm of the allocation?
I can't remember exactly. I know there's a relatively thin sort of green infrastructure buffer on the one side. I need to have a look at the assessments. So there's a landscape and heritage assessment, etc., that have since been commissioned as part of the evidence base. I don't know if Colette is allowed to speak or knows a bit more, but
I don't see why not.
Yeah.
I don't think it's probably appropriate that I describe the landscape details. I haven't been responding on that particular application. So Catherine, so I think probably best for me not to sort of comment on that, but they are there. And I think there is a significant sort of green infrastructure scheme that's been put forward, but obviously, you know, there'll be more detail that'll come forward in the actual application.
Yes,
levels in the detail.
Yeah,
okay, thanks,
Colette. Thanks, Colette. Yeah, just to say, obviously at this stage, it's in a proposed policy, so the actual kind of percentage, say, of green infrastructure and whatnot, as opposed to further down the line with the detailed layout. So at the moment, as a team or responding on your behalves, it would just be based on the illustrative master plan, which I think is included in the draft plan, and the landscape assessment that has been commissioned.
Right. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Catherine. John Teal, please.
The mitigation that was put forward was a woodland buffer to the eastern side of the site, which I think was mainly to provide a sort of buffer from the bats at Newton Court and to screen out the views from the scheduled monument of the site, but it doesn't cover the south of the site, and the Wye Valley National Landscape is on the south side of the site, so it doesn't. So it was a buffer for bats and for the ancient monument, not for the national landscape. So there really isn't a mitigation for that national landscape.
Right, does anybody else have any comments? Colette.
Yeah, just to say what I can say is that obviously Monmouthshire has a fairly robust approach towards all applications in relation to green infrastructure mitigation. Monmouthshire has a green infrastructure strategy, green infrastructure supplementary planning guidance, and we have quite, you know, substantial requirements when it comes to all applications in relation to what they should and shouldn't be providing on site. So any application that comes forward would need to meet any of the sort of requirements that relate to opportunities and assets assessed on site, a master plan, and then a management plan, which would form part of the mitigation strategy. So the landscape assessment obviously would be something that would be required as part of any application process, and that would need to be assessed as part of the land map approach in Wales, and any mitigation would need to take account of all of those processes that are set out both in Planning Policy Wales and within our own policy guidance. So that's there is, you know, significant policy and supplementary planning guidance, which does allow us the tools to make effective decisions when assessing the landscape impact.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Colette. Anybody else? Anybody else? Well, I'm assuming that we're going to put our strongest argument forward to look after not only the national landscape, but the the bats involved and exercise our biodiversity duty to the full. So when we have that response, it'll be once it's drafted, I'll put it through, but I'll also try and copy people in if you're interested. Okay, thank you for that. I'd like to now move on to the Wysham Wye Valley Walk footway, which has nothing to do with sewage. Andrew.
Or sewage works. Yes, so I did write to Highways asking for, basically there were sort of three questions. Was any works currently planned either this year or next year? If not, what would it take to draw up plans and what would be appropriate, and whether there was any any interest in us, as in the National Landscape, potentially contributing to costs. And I'm afraid to say I haven't heard anything back. And I know the few dealings I've had with Highways recently, of course, they've got roads missing in Lantoni Valley and things like that. So there are obviously greater priorities within the Highways network, but I'm sure when they do respond, I will share it with both of you as local members and everyone else if everyone's interested.
I do note that does now say there is now a sign that says pedestrians in the highway on the roadside, so that's a small step in the right direction. I know it's only minor, but it is something. I was, it's unbelievable that it didn't even have that before, but it is, yeah.
David.
Could I
Anne.
Could I just have a note of your letter, or to tell me who you actually requested that response from, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
I only want to say Emma and I have been raising this at this meeting for 12 months, and we never seem to get anything from Monmouthshire Highways on it at all. It is incredibly dangerous. People are just wandering into the highway immediately after a chicane where motorists are A, negotiating the chicane, 2, speeding up because they're coming out of the 30-mile-an-hour limit, and C, having to negotiate pedestrians, quite often with dogs, sometimes running on charity runs in the middle of the road. Add that to the fact that there's an almost permanent puddle there whenever it rains, and you can identify just why so dangerous it is. I have seen near misses there on a number of occasions, and it is the Wye Valley Walk, and perhaps it shouldn't be the Wye Valley Walk, and that section from Redbrook to Monmouth should be cancelled, because we should not be directing people into this dangerous situation.
Thank you, David. You make a good point. Andrew, can we respond to Highways again, asking them, notifying them of the dangers? It won't be just pedestrians in the highway, it'll be dead pedestrians in the highway. With all respect. Yeah, we've got to get some movement on that. Is this Gloucestershire Highways? No. This is Monmouthshire Highways. Otherwise, I'd pull some. I'd use my connections as a county councillor. Anyway, thank you for that. Anybody else on the Wysham Walkway? Andrew.
I can fill in on the other two sections of the Wye Valley Walk along there that could also lead to potentially its closure and rediversion via the Offarsdyke Path is probably the only alternative there. Some of you may be aware a car ended up in a tree on the bend just at the south end of the Monmouthshire Showground, in that little bit of woodland between the road and the river. we're just waiting to hear from the vehicles or the driver's insurance company as to how to resolve that. We've had a quote for the tree works necessary to make the tree safe. The car has gone. I think it was removed by the police and or the insurance company. So that's one thing. We've just received a report looking at both that section of the Wye Valley Walk and the section further upstream by the sewage works through to, or from the end of the showground up to the Beaufort Bridge. Again, looking at what the solutions might be on that, and we'll be looking at the next steps and options on that after Easter. But yes, so we're looking, in depth at that stretch, because certainly both the bend by the monitoring station and that section through the through past the sewage works into the Beaufort Bridge are both critical at the moment. And yes, the alternative would have to be diverting people by Offa's Path, which is, well, perfectly pleasant, is a bit of an up and down and a detour dog leg for the Wye Valley Walk. But, yeah.
Emma.
So I was just going to ask, has any conversation ever been had with the landowners of Lord's Grove regarding that alternative?
Not current landowners, and I'm not quite sure who the current landowners are. So any information on that would be gratefully received, and it could be something we could investigate if we could get a safe road crossing there.
So the Redbrook bit, it comes up in the same place, so that section unfortunately would still be a problem, but the riverside, it would answer some of that.
Yes, Emma's quite right. The logical way of doing it would be to go along the old railway track at a higher level, which is what a large number of people in Wisham and Redbrook do anyway, even though it's not, of course, any public footpath of any sort, but then large sections of the Wye Valley Walk in the Redbrook area are not actually public footpaths.
Thank you. Andrew will chase that up. Colette, sorry.
Hi, yeah, just to say that we obviously, Public Rights of Way are actually working with the Wye Valley National Landscape team, looking at all of the options. We are meeting collectively to discuss what can be achieved, and we are aware of the situation. Obviously, our hands are to some extent tied, obviously, with highways, and it's part of the prioritisation from highways perspective as well that's having an impact in terms of their ability to be able to respond, I think, has been one of the issues. So I'm sure we'll be able to try and extract a further response via Andrew from Highways, and we'll see what further discussions we can develop really collectively together. So it's not something that I think any of us want to continue, but we are keen to try to make sure that we achieve the best outcome for all.
Great, thank you, Colette. Yeah, with all of these things, it's a matter of timing, isn't it? And wanting to do things quicker with fewer resources. It's always the balance. But hopefully, we might get somewhere if we contact them again with a strongish letter to say, look, let's get some movement. But thank you, Colette, for that. Okay, anybody else on the Wisham Walkway? No. Well, I'd like to move on to JAC membership review. I'm sorry, Stephen.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, while we're on talking about Wisham, tonight and for the next 3 weeks, there's going to be a night closure from 8 o'clock until 6 in the morning for the Staunton stretch of the road. So hopefully it will, when you get into Forest of Dean, the road's obviously a lot better. Hopefully Monmouthshire will begin to match the roads in the Forest of Dean, hopefully in the next 3 weeks. So 8 till o'clock tonight till 6 in the morning for the next 3 weeks. And hopefully that road will be a lot better.
Thank you for that, and the compliment for the Forest of Dean pothole repair team.
Yeah.
But if you think the Forest of Dean is good, then then that's a very low bar. But anyway,
Like Cardiff, that's worse.
it also means that Monmouthshire must be devastating. But, okay, all right, we won't have a competition on that then. Thank you, Stephen. Right, let's move on to JAC membership, and briefly, Andrew, if you can just fill us in on the vacancies and the preferments.
Yep, obviously, yes, I'd like to welcome Catherine, as the chair has, as a new member for the representing nomination from the NFU. Also, we have Chloe Rees, who wasn't able to join us, but is on behalf of the Gloucestershire Association of Parish and Town Councils. I'm waiting for a nomination from the Friends of the River Wye, but that still leaves us several other vacancies which I'm trying to fill. So we do still have a number of vacant seats on the JAC, but yeah, we're slowly working our way through filling them. I don't know, did I see Lynn was saying she's having trouble with the Teams link. Hopefully everyone else is all right in their connections. Yeah, thanks, Dale. Anyway, so yes, membership. We do still have a few vacancies, but I'm working to fill them. But it is whenever I go around sort of canvassing or proposing to various people, they're already, over allocated in their time or their resources. So I was interested to see that Shropshire Hills did a completely open recruitment recently, so we may move to that as an option if we can't fill all the seats.
Okay, thank you. And it would be good also if those that are members or representative on the Joint Advisory Committee do turn up, or at least make use of the hybrid facility that we're testing now, so that we get more people. The more people, the more eyes, the more thoughts on issues, I think the better the result. Okay, thank you for that. We're now moving on to the pre-consultation draft management plan framework. It's obviously the overarching objectives, themes and policies that we're looking at. It's in line with what we've had before, obviously being brought up to date because the world changes in the 5-year plan time periods. Andrew, do you want to mention anything more on that, and then we'll go to members to ask their questions?
Yes, so this is the pre-consultation, or the draft of where we've got to. Currently, we're looking to go out to public consultation on the a finalised consultation draft after Easter. So it's still got some skeleton, it's still a bit of a skeleton with needing the flesh and bones added in that the policies are all there, but there's not the descriptive text to go with each section. But you've got the basic framework and the structure of the document and the special qualities which we've rationalised down. We haven't actually really changed any of the special qualities. We've just amalgamated some of them to make them fewer, which I think just eases sort of management of them. So we've gone down from 27 down to 18. And then similarly the policies compared with the current plan where there are over 70 strategic objectives, we've got this down to about 50. So again, there's a little bit of rationalisation, as the Chair said, bringing it up to date, obviously, and restructuring. So I'm happy that we could take comments or any suggested amendments over the next couple of weeks, but obviously we're trying to get this finished to get it out to public consultation. So we don't want any radical changes at this stage. Then everyone has the opportunity to comment and during the public consultation stage, and then we obviously go to finalising the document later in the year. The programme is attached as well, and there has been a little bit of slippage, which means that I don't think we will be getting the finalised plan until sort of the November JAC, which means that then getting the local authorities to adopt it afterwards, it's going to be very close into the end of 2026. So it doesn't seem any point in designating the plan period as 2026 to 2031. We may as well nudge it on a year, so the next plan runs from 2027 to 2032. So I've also put in the recommendation that we therefore just recognise that the existing plan is valid until the new plan comes in, just so we don't end up with any hiatus if anyone wanted to highlight or take advantage of that. Yes, so apart from that, it's here for your information. We're happy to take any comments or suggested tweaks in content, but we will be working hard over the next month to finalise this, to get it out formally to public consultation, and then we'll be hosting 3 events during that public consultation period, where drop-in sessions and things like that for members of the public, as well as promoting the public consultation as widely as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Emma. Was it Emma? Yeah.
Yeah, my main question was, what was the public consultation going to look like, and where would the public events occur? And could you make sure that you please share any online version of the consultation with us, so that we could also try to share it? Because I know one of the problems with consultations is getting engagement, isn't it? So the more we can get out there, the better. So you will be doing a number of events where you face-to-face with the public, I presume?
Yes, I mean, we'll basically do one in the north, so in Ross probably, or thereabouts, one in the south, so possibly sort of Tintern, Trelleck, maybe Brockway sort of area, and one in the middle, which would probably be Monmouth-ish based, So there's north, south, and middle, and looking at varying the times of day, so maybe early evenings or daytimes, or different days of the week and things like that. So some people will hopefully be able to catch. Have time when people are available to join face to face. Then, we will be pushing it out broadly as we can. It will be channeled through our website and through our social media, but we will certainly be contacting all the town, parish, and community councils, and all the contacts and individuals and organisations that we regularly work with, but certainly welcome any other promotion and channeling that people are able to do on our behalf as well. Thanks.
So is there scope to put something in, say, public facing places like libraries with a QR code, so people are aware of it, to raise awareness on more of a face-to-face basis as well? Libraries is what comes to mind, but leisure centres, anywhere like that where people are just coming and going and can find out more?
Yes, we'll try and do everything we can like that. I mean, in the days when we used to, deposit physical paperwork, but yes, we used to focus very heavily on the libraries, but thanks for reminding me that I mustn't forget that.
Thank you, Emma. Yeah, it's absolutely vital that we consult as best we can. There is a sort of element of consultation fatigue amongst the population for valid reasons. But yes, if the consultation is the more responses we get, the better we feel that we're on the right track. So yeah, absolutely
I think a lot of people will care, but if they don't know it's happening, then they won't get a chance to.
Quite. And online as well, you know, it's if the consultation is made simple to participate with, then you can get quite a few responses that way. I'm pleased to see that we've got tranquility and dark skies in there. Dark skies with the corollary being light pollution. I'm really pleased about that. With tranquility, if we can use this to decrease the number of scrambler motorbikes that come past my house on a Sunday, I'd be ever so pleased. But and with farming and forestry, I note that when we say support the development and continuation of both traditional and innovative land management skills, we imply regenerative land management, because we need to look after our soils, and I've got a sneaky feeling that the provision of food is going to come up the agenda in the next 5 years. So we need to make sure that we are ready for that and proactively for that. Okay, if everybody's happy with that, so far, David.
Thank you, Chair. I've just managed, as Chair of the Planning Committee in the Forest of Dean, to get my head round biodiversity. And now you're introducing something even more exciting called geodiversity. And I just wondered if you could just give us a slight explanation of what geodiversity is, and tell us what the geoconservation organisations you're working with are, and can you give us an example?
Yes, I'll take those in reverse order. The Hereford and Worcester Earth Heritage Trust are probably the main one that we work with. They're possibly a little more active these days over on the Malvern Hills, which is a registered geopark, the Malvern Hills and Averley Hills. So yes, there are organisations that focus predominantly on geology. And also organisations like the Woolhope Club and things like that. So that's the who, in a sense. Geodiversity is a term that relates to the diversity of the geology and geomorphology. So I think it was a term that came in around, or on the heels of biodiversity, relating to, people wanted to emphasise that rocks aren't just rocks. There's a huge range and diversity of them, and processes, other geological and geomorphological processes. So it's trying to emphasise that. So geoconservation is conserving or enhancing those, and so the obvious thing is where you've got rock exposures, where you can get a good sighting of the geology. Obviously, that will invariably scrub over time, or get filled in if you're not careful, and things like that. So it's preserving or enhancing the access and accessibility and visibility of things like that. And of course, making sure that they're not damaged by other activities, whether that's recreational or land management or whatever.
I would hope that we, thank you for that explanation, yes, I would hope that we will also use our skills in opening these sorts of interesting features up to the public, and that probably means some degree of explanatory boards. Like most people are going to say, yes, it's a cliff, and there's a board that's actually saying, well, it's a cliff, and actually, if you look up there, and there's a this, and there's a sandstone, and there's a mudstone, and there's a shale, and stuff like that. Is that what we're talking about?
That's potentially one aspect, certainly, and of course doing guided walks and trail leaflets and things like that. I mean, the Hereford and Worcester Earth Heritage Trust have done some fantastic leaflets if you're into that sort of thing or want to be enlightened on those sorts of things. So there's some great trails and obviously, yeah, take you to those best places where you can appreciate most. So yes, it's all that sort of work. Thanks.
Great, thank you there. If we're okay on the framework, then we'll move on to the Wye Valley National Landscape Nature Recovery Plan. Oh, just sorry, an apology from me in that I forgot to see the health and well-being section, which does actually talk about food and food provisioning. So I thought that had been missed out, but it hadn't. Moving on to the Wye Valley National Landscape Nature Recovery Plan. For those of you that are aware, we've got 5 representative species that represent the 5 special qualities of our landscape, in particular the ecology. So I'm going to see if I can remember them. They are the woodland white and the pearl-bordered fritillary for woodlands, the hedgehog for boundaries and hedges, the carder bee for wildflowers and particularly wildflower edges, and the, oh, where are we? And the noble chafer for orchards, and then finally the water crowfoot, which we are just finishing its plan now. Is it?
Yes. Some of them are assemblages of species.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry. Yeah, in that respect. So they're great, and hopefully we'll monitor their success over the years. Andrew, have you got anything else that you want to draw out from this one?
Yeah. So this is an overarching strategy that covers the main special qualities of the national landscape. Having said that, this is not quite aligned with the new management plan proposed special qualities. I don't think they change, but will need to just double check, because I think that those sort of headline special qualities haven't changed. But yeah, I think it's a really useful, it's been a fantastic exercise in gathering the information together and mapping it and getting those sort of heat maps across the area. It acts as the umbrella to the species action plans, and as Chris said, the water crowfoot was the final species action plan, which we'll be bringing to the next JAC. So yes, we're just asking you to endorse this plan, and we will weave it into the management plan, and it sits alongside the other sort of statutory requirements like the local nature recovery strategies and the nature recovery action plan in Monmouthshire. So it's very much designed to integrate well with those. And I suppose on that note, just to remind everyone that the Herefordshire local nature recovery strategy is also out for public consultation at the moment. So if anyone is interested in that, they should seek that out. I think I put the link in the papers on page 47 through the Herefordshire Council website. So yes, hopefully you will endorse this document. Thank you.
Of course, thank you, Andrew. Of course, there's a high bar that has been set by the Colchester Declaration, which is a brilliant piece of work. If anybody ever gets a chance to read it, page 54, or I've got on my printout pack. But it sets some targets. This is for the National Landscape Network, that by 2030, that at least 200,000 hectares of SSSIs in AONBs will be in favourable condition. Now, obviously, we want to play our part and we want to contribute as much as we can to meeting that target. But that's in 4 years' time. And we are in the recovery stage, which just tells you something about the fact that, you know, the wildlife is so depopulated. So we live in a nature deficit, a nature depletion country. So we do need to recover that. And I'm hoping that we will be able to, we will embed those targets, or a proportion of those targets that we're responsible for, so that we do actually work to that. 2030 is in only 4 years' time. And at the moment, we've still got a river which is unfavourable, declining. Okay, yeah, lots of people connect with nature, and if that's the way they connect with the landscape, then brilliant. My one thing that I will be bringing to the Y Navigation Board meeting is that there seems to be potentially a conflict between paddle boats and water crowfoot, depending on how the boats are used, but in taking the plant, uprooting the plant through strong paddle work, but also affecting the sedimentation on the gravel beds, which are the beds for you know, some of the migratory species reproducing. And we'll see where we go from that. Hopefully it doesn't, you know, the conflict is resolvable, and we need evidence to show how much harm is done by paddle boats, because obviously they're a key player in, you know, in the recreation and tourism side of the Wye Valley. I've got nothing else to say. Gloucestershire have accepted their local nature recovery strategy a couple of weeks ago. In that case, if there's anybody else online, Dale.
Yeah, I'm happy to endorse the document, but I'm just curious. We've had these species on the agenda for a number of years, and I could just wondering if you could tell me if there has been any increase in the numbers over those years. Thank you.
Good question.
No, that's a very good question. I mean, it comes down to whether we have any accurate baseline of what the numbers are. I mean, there's a range of actions that we have been doing as each species action plan has been finalised and adopted. There's an action plan with each of those. So I think what would be the best thing to do is to come back at the next meeting with an update report on yes, what the progress is, what we've been doing, what we know about each one, and so I think that would be a useful point of review. And we'll obviously be bringing the annual report anyway to the next meeting. So yeah, that would be a good point to review what progress we've been making on those.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Dale. You hit the nail on the head there, because ultimately the success or otherwise of these biodiversity action plans is in the numbers of the species, the populations increasing, but also the habitats expanding to take those population increases. Andrew's right also that very difficult to get a baseline on some species, but there must be some way that you can check in and see and monitor an improvement in the situation. Maybe it's when we need to use our windscreen wipers to clear the insects off in the summer, might be a good indication that we're doing something right. Thank you. I would like now to move on to the... David.
Look up, sorry. I was particularly interested in SQ18, Ancient and Veteran Trees, which I think are extremely interesting. Firstly, my ignorance, what is an ancient and veteran tree and what's the difference? And then I'd like to make a comment, if I may, in addition, after I've found out what it is.
Oh, you're putting me on the spot now. The basic rule of thumb is any tree that's too big to hug, I think. And there is a difference between veteran and ancient, and I can't remember which way round it is. But yes, I can't remember whether an ancient tree is, in fact, Brian, you're online, aren't you? You're probably better able to clarify than me. That I don't know whether you want to step in, Brian Jones. Maybe not. I think the veteran trees are, is it over? No, it's not over 80 years old, and ancients are more than 200 years old or something like that. But yeah, they are the big trees that we see. We surveyed about 15 years ago, surveyed the veteran trees in the national landscape, and as I think I mentioned in the report, we ended up with over 2,500 recognised in the national landscape. Now we know that we have not revisited a lot of those, but we do have a good resource of them in the area. Oh, Brian, you're there. Do you want to say anything? As I know this is an area you have expertise in.
I'm back now. Yeah, I couldn't get any link just a minute ago. The best place to go to look at that is probably the Woodland Trust's Ancient Tree Inventory website. At the head of that website, there's all sorts of items to link on, including items that describe precisely what ancient, veteran and notable trees are. And it's all in good plain English and well worth looking at.
And James has put the link in the chat as well, James Bissett. So, yes.
The thing I wanted to come back at is, how do we avoid, if we are going to identify important ancient and veteran trees, the problem of the sycamore in the sycamore gap? I.e., if you're saying this is a really important tree, how do we stop the vandalism of them?
Yeah,
I don't know on the Welsh side, but we put a TPO on it because it's of such iconic importance and amenity value that's what we do. And we have put TPOs on all sorts of trees. And they don't necessarily need to be massive in size. Some of the ancient trees are actually small trees, but sycamores are TPO'd, as they are in St Brebol's, where we have trees that were probably the first sycamores planted in the Forest of Dean. Yeah, okay.
I was thinking more of the deliberate vandalism not by the landowner, like the Sycamore Gap in Northumberland, where it's so iconic that somebody decided, well, that would be jolly good fun to go and chop it down.
Well, if you have a way of informing us on how we best protect those trees, we'd certainly welcome that.
I think on the whole we haven't got any in such iconic locations like that. I mean, like I said, we've had 2,500 of them, but we don't want that turned into some competitive challenge. But and a lot of them are on, in the depths of private land, so they're not publicly accessible in that respect. But yes, silly people will do stupid things sometimes. But no, there was concern when we did that first, the initial survey, that it might highlight certainly, yes, publicly accessible trees, but yeah, it's a hard one to resolve. But yes, I think thankfully, in a sense, we've got enough outstanding landscape without worrying about any standout trees in them. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that. Moving on to moving on to agenda item 7, the Wye Valley National Landscape Work Programme and Funding for the 2026-2027. If any of you remember, we were told a couple of meetings ago that we would only be given a standstill budget from government, and that we would have to be looking very carefully at which programs we fund and fundraising as well. I've now been told that we've actually been given a little bit more money, a little bit more funding, and that's probably as a result of the fact that we deliver so well that if there is an underspend, then they push it our way, which is it's a really good compliment to the team, but it's also a really good position to be in, and we should remain in that position so that we have, as they say, shovel-ready projects ready to go should any underfunding come our way. But to look at the agenda item, I'll pass you to Andrew on this.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll take all the credit I can get, but I have to say it's on a national level that the DEFRA have suggested, it's not confirmed yet, but that they found a bit more money down the side of the sofa that they're able to offer to the national landscapes across England, which I think is testament to the hard work that we all do, myself and my colleagues in other national landscapes, the hard work and agility with which we work to try and deliver on conserving, enhancing natural beauty and for nature, climate, people and place. So I'm glad to say the budgets are looking secure for next financial year, so we've been able to concentrate on continuity with the work programme and obviously moving forwards, but able to consolidate a lot of existing projects and initiatives and similarly plan ahead more strategically. So I won't go in detail unless anyone wants to raise any questions, but I've put the outline of our work programme for the next financial year in. Obviously, we're working up as a team to cost that and allocate the funding we've got across that, those different projects and initiatives. I'm very pleased and happy with the state of the finances for next financial year, which I know other organisations are not in that position. So certainly feel very privileged in that respect. But it always is a privilege to work in the Wye Valley. So thank you.
Well said that man. Anybody else? No, I do know that. Oh, Emma, sorry, I was coming round to you.
Yeah, sorry, it is me again. And yeah, I just wanted to say, I just thought there's such a number of wonderful projects on this list. So, and I wanted to commend you for that. I just thought I got just a couple of points if I could. It did mention match funding drawing on National Landscapes reserves, and that did concern me a little. Are you saying now that there's enough funding now that's not going to be necessary? Because I was wondering what if there's an excess of reserves currently, and how sustainable that was if you were dipping into them. I was going to ask, should I ask all my 4 questions now if you can answer all 4? Is that, yeah. I was going to ask you what, it's good to see public engagement listed as one of the priorities, and I was going to ask you what the public engagement entailed. I was really happy to see that the Young Adventurers was on the list, and just was going to ask if this is similar to previous youth initiatives, that the landscapes teams have run, because I've only ever heard good things and that children, young people have experienced on those schemes. And finally, it was about the enhancements you listed that were planned for the 69 bus route walks. I was wondering if you could give me a little bit more information, if you do have it, and request, if you don't have it now, if you could communicate these to me at later dates, obviously, because I'd like to forward any of that information to my residents. Diolch.
Okay, reserves, we do hold, or Herefordshire Council do hold some reserves for us. We obviously try not to rely on them too heavily, but also don't want them to build up to an embarrassment of riches. So we certainly, under the current prospects, we won't need to dip into reserves next year, next financial year, which is good. We are looking with things like our Lottery Landscape Connections bid, which we are just hopefully will get submitted this week, later this week, that we would use up a fairly sizable amount of the reserves on something like that. But that, if you remember, is a £10 million 10-year project, and that means if we can use our reserves rather than coming back round to the county councils saying, do you want to chip in, then that I think is a good use of those reserves. So we will use the reserves where we think are appropriate. But yes, I'm glad to say we're not having to use them just to subsidise staff costs next financial year. Public engagement, it's right across the board. One of the things we definitely need to do really is refresh or revise our website. So that would be at the heart of the kind of core to our whole public engagement, and it's through social media, and then the walks, talks, events, and working in the schools, and through different other partnerships. Of course, it's a huge amount of work now working with farmers and landowners as well. So that's that's all a level of engagement. Again, if we have sufficient resources, we started to look at a broader sort of diversity engagement, working with kind of diverse communities in Newport and in Gloucester, and that's something we would like to do more of. If again, we're waiting to see what the settlement is as to whether we can do a bit more work on that front. So that would be getting kind of minority groups out into the Wye Valley, sort of walking groups and that sort of thing. Young adventurers, definitely we want to continue. That seems to have been working well, but also again expanding that out through other age groups and other sectors to see, just try and get as many, give the opportunity to as many young people as possible to get out into our outstanding landscape. So there was a project, nationally run project called Generation Green a year ago. There's talk of revitalising that, and that was getting, ideally the ambition was to get every child out to spend a night out under the stars, as it were, to camp in national landscapes or do day trips. So again, we're waiting to hear whether something like that might have national backing, but we do as much as we can locally. 69 bus, there's the 65 and 69, working with the Newport Bus company and the local interest groups. We just want to continue that whole initiative. Newport Bus have been very amenable, and again, it's it's if we've got the resources, then we can do more. The challenge we've had, certainly, this current financial year, was we had so much, or we had large amounts of capital funding and not much revenue funding. So lots of things you've got to do, big assets, and things that are sort of purchasing assets that enhance the area. Whereas so much of this sort of engagement stuff and doesn't fit on capital funding, or it's really tight, awkward fit. So if we've got a little bit more revenue funding, then certainly it allows us to do more of the sort of the soft stuff that actually is so important for reaching people. So there's a few responses, but I'll definitely keep you in the loop on things on the 69 bus. Thanks.
The 69 bus timetable and information is brilliant, I think. Have you got copies in your office, please? But I have asked for more because I've given so many out. But it's actually a brilliant leaflet, and thank you for that.
Okay, thank you, Anne. Emma, thank you for that. We're obviously well funded at the moment for current programmes. Got 10.5 staff, full-time equivalent, and we seem to be not flush with cash, but certainly able to deliver what we need to do. We've also outlined the priorities and projects for the next work programme for next year. No, sorry, for this year. But we need to also resource and fund the next management plan in the next 5 years. So hopefully we can keep that pace up, because it looks good at the moment. Thank you. Right, if there's no further hands up for any more on that one, we'd like to look at the National Planning Policy Framework. We're nearly finished. Proposed reforms. Now the NPPF is a new bill which is taking into account changes in governments, but also in priorities. For those of you that have read it, we've got a draft consultation response. I'll ask if anybody has any initial comments before I give my own opinions. No, okay. It generally reduces the protections for wildlife and nature and reduces our status as requiring the highest status of protection as a national landscape. So that is no longer the case, and in fact it conveys a slightly, we convey a slightly different message, which is less potent, less strong, less weighty. There are other elements which I tend to allow for sustainable development, but the bar is lower for those developers getting that permission to develop. It's a good response. Whether it will change anything, I don't know. But we do have to realise that despite nature depletion and nature loss, which is a crisis, we are losing the battle against economic growth and development. So it's a case of priorities, but we all know where we stand, and we value the landscapes that we know and love. We hope that that any consultation will lead to changes which continue to give us the highest status of protection that we need for the benefit of the country. Any more on that? It's well written. The background is on there. The links are on there. It's what it is. Thank you, David.
In the middle of page 100, under 1, I have to note Riley, I think is the right word. We welcome the change from landscape and scenic beauty to natural beauty, yes, given that we have just got rid of natural beauty from our title.
it's still the purpose of designation. So that's why we're actually very pleased that it's in there, because landscape and scenic beauty was not the purpose of designation for national parks and national landscapes, but crept in, I think, 5 or more years ago into planning parlance. So we're very pleased to see natural beauty reinstated, because that aligns with the designation and the purposes. What we're called doesn't matter, because national parks are designated for their natural beauty, and it wasn't in their title either. Yes, so that's potentially a really significant change, that it aligns planning policy with the purpose of our designation. Yes, there are other swings and roundabouts in here. But the deadline for submitting this is tomorrow, so Catherine will be inputting this in the next 24 hours. So any other comment, yes, let us know ASAP, because we need to get this submitted.
Thank you, Andrew. I'd better stop there on this one. Emma.
I was just going to ask, do you know if there are other organisations who are making raising similar concerns about safeguarding concerns about these changes? Because I just think if there are multiple voices all saying the same things, then hopefully it'll be listened to.
Yes, the National Landscapes Association works obviously very closely with National Parks, National Parks England and Campaign for National Parks, CPRE, the National Trust. You know, there's a body of I suppose more landscape focused and countryside focused charities and NGOs who are able to lobby. But also bodies like the Landscape Institute and the sort of professional bodies as well, as well as all the sort of the environmental NGOs, RSPB, the wildlife trusts and so on and so forth. So there's this, certainly, as I said, the National Landscape Association has been liaising with a lot of those bodies and yes, sharing perspectives and refining arguments, so that there is a weight of a consensus, in a sense, in the response going in. Thanks.
I think virtually every environmental organisation that's worth their salt is opposed to these changes, or some of the changes, which dilute their protections.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say, that somebody like the RSPB would be as equally as alarmed as I would have thought any landscaped organisation.
Yeah. Okay, as I said, I'm going to stop there. Let's move on to updates on farming and protected landscapes.
Yes, so this is just the update on the grants issued since the last JOC on 3 of our main funding streams, so the Farming and Protected Landscapes and Fermio Pro on the Welsh side, and the Sustainable Development Fund in Wales as well. So I won't go into the detail, but you've got the list of the applications and a very brief description of what's been funded, and a little breakdown of on page 105 of the sort of outcomes that have been funded through Farming and Protected Landscapes. So that just gives you a little bit of an impression of the sort of the balance of the funding, but we're certainly very pleased with the way that's been going, both in terms of the working with the farmers and landowners and land managers, but also the breadth and depth of applications that have have been approved. Similarly with Family Pro, smaller scheme this year, although the funding pretty much doubles for next year, which is excellent. So again, a good range of schemes, and this is the first year of Family Pro as opposed to the fifth year of FIPL. So that's gaining momentum as we move into the next financial year. And the Sustainable Development Fund, again, as always, a good range of schemes going forward. And the Wye Valley Fund with Herefordshire Community Foundation still sat there, was still, you know, we need to find a way to attract more grants and donations into that. So it's a sort of, that's a separate job in the sense that we need to raise funds for that. So that's still ongoing work. So we've pretty much got that closed at the moment because there's not really enough in to grant out on that currently. Anyway, so that's a snapshot of projects and grants funded to date.
Thank you, Andrew. Sorry, Dale first.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just curious to know whether there is any impact measurements on any of these projects. So, for argument's sake, where you're doing the leaky weirs and stuff, do we go back a year or two later and assess the works?
Yes, we try to, and that's partly through building a relationship with those organisations and individuals. I mean, that there's obviously the making sure the work is done and is completed. But yes, then we're usually able to go back and monitor them. I wouldn't say it's a completely systematic kind of monitoring program, but it's as much the relevant officers being able to take the opportunity to drop by and see how things are going. But also we want to learn the lessons and share the good practice. And so often if there's, you know, examples of good practice where things are working well, then we would set up maybe a trip or a visit, farm visit to those sorts of places and show them off and share them with other farmers and landowners and saying, you know, look, you could be doing this, we could be helping you fund these sorts of things on your land. Where things don't work, we probably won't highlight it so well, but we will, like I said, learn the lessons and modify methodologies or whatever as appropriate. Thanks.
David?
Thank you, Chair.
You turned your mic off.
Trying to off again. I'd like to congratulate the officers, because I know the team have done very well in joining in with Staunton Parish Council's attempt to maintain Staunton Mead Heathland. I suspect that's how you've managed to get one of your new members in onto the Gloucestershire Parish and Town Council, with Chloe coming on. More interestingly, Hancock's Meadow, which I don't know at all, and I apologise, a shelter belt, £5,764. I would quite like to know what a shelter belt is, and then exactly how much and how well proportioned are these San Martin boxes at £4,800 each?
Yeah. Good questions. A shelter belt is basically it's a very wide hedge or a very narrow woodland. They tend to be about 10 metres wide, and they are designed to, when you plant them, you have sort of lower bushes and shrubs on the windward side, and then you would build up the height over that width. So they're put in as windbreaks, but they're designed to be sort of natural windbreaks rather than just a load of poplars or something. So they are planted up as a very wide hedge or a very narrow woodland, and we're finding more and more farmers are realising the benefit of that sort of, certainly on windy ridges or open plateaus, putting in that sort of infrastructure can help. Certainly if they've got livestock, then it provides shading and windbreak from the livestock. But even on for arable, it actually stops soils getting blown away and that sort of thing, and managing water flow, and there are multiple benefits, which is why we've actually funded quite a few this year, this last year. Yes, the San Martin boxes is a bit of an experiment, but in the Wye, certainly in Herefordshire, there are several sandy cliffs of the river which have are key breeding grounds for sand martins. But as the river becomes more unpredictable and floods more often, certainly any spring or summer floods are likely to wipe out those breeding sand martin colonies. So they're produced. I can't remember who makes them, but they are built structures, and they're put just above the main flood level, and I think they've got. I think the ones we've looked at are a pair of them with, I think it's 48 holes in, so potentially, so it is basically essentially they're made out of concrete or cement, but they're sand walls with holes in them, and then the cavities behind, and an access at the back, so you can put cameras in or monitor the breeding if you want. And those are then set, and just effectively on the ground or on a plinth, and they'd be just above the flood level, near to those places where the sand martins are already breeding. So part of the reason why we funded it this year is because it's an interesting innovation, and we know we have lots of sand martins, and they're a lovely special species in the Wye. So if we can do something that improves and enhances their breeding and success rate, then that's excellent. So we'll definitely be monitoring those, seeing how well they do over the coming years. See whether they're used as always with nest boxes. You can put up as many as you like, but if the birds don't use them, then they're not effective. But so that's what those are.
So I was being tongue-in-cheek, but they are actually luxury sand martin boxes.
We'll find out. I don't know whether they're luxury ones. They may be budget ones, but yes, we'll see whether they work.
Can we request that you feedback on us on that, because now we're all engaged?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, send us the cam footage or whatever, so that we can enjoy it at home. Brilliant. Anybody else? Any more for farming and funding and for projects and initiatives? No. Okay, that's great. I'd like to move on to the charter, the River Wye Charter. This is a standing item on this agenda, looking at progress towards cleaning the Wye and returning it and restoring it to its former beauty at the heart of the national landscape. Does anybody having read it, if you have, does anybody have any comments on that other than to learn from it and see how the research is moving on. Obviously, we still haven't got a river which is improving, or certainly by Natural England standards, but there have been some research that we're still awaiting the findings for. Okay, Andrew.
Yes, so there's sort of two things combined in one here. The Charter is an initiative led primarily by Herefordshire Council, Councillor Alyssa Swinglehurst, who's Cabinet Member for the Environment and Herefordshire Council. It seems only right for us to support the Charter, which I think will be launched at the Hay Festival in May. So that's sort of one part. The other is the I suppose, yes, our standing update now on the latest initiatives on the Wye, and probably most important is the commissioning of the production of the Wye Catchment Management Plan. Long awaited, finally moving into production stage. Again, it is just a plan, and it's a non-statutory plan, but there is a huge amount of interest and, I suppose, anticipation in the outputs of the action plan from that to help guide people moving forward. Similarly, the diffuse water pollution plan has been published, which has some hard-hitting truths about the state of the pollution in the water, and the options coming out of that, and that also feeds into will feed into the Wye Catchment Plan. So I would certainly recommend. I mean, I've summarised the diffuse water pollution plan here, but I would highly recommend reading its the executive summary of it, and along with a few other documents that have come out recently, like the State of Nature report in Wales, I forget the full title of it, but there was the wasn't the national emergency briefing, but it was something like that. Saying we really need systems change. The existing mechanisms, however much we ramp them up and enforce them fully, will still not get us far enough. So we really need system change into of what we're doing and how we're doing it. Along those lines, the Wye-scapes Landscape Recovery project has submitted its the bid to DEFRA, so we sit back and wait to see what comes from that. Won't hear till the autumn probably, really, on the success of that, but that's effectively a 30-year programme for farmers on the river between sort of Goodrich and Lempster, and so on the Wye and the Lug. So that's that'll be really interesting to watch, and we'll keep members updated on that. And further research funded through DEFRA is also crawling forward, but that will be looking again at lots of the water quality issues. So we'll be able to keep members informed on that as well. I think that's probably the broad gist of things. And as Chairman mentioned, there's the Wine Navigation Advisory Committee meeting on Thursday this week, isn't it? I think, as well, which is looking more at navigation than other issues. But I'll keep representing the JAC on that if everyone is happy with that too. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Andrew. I think the rights of the River Wye and the Charter are an interesting development, recognising that our rivers are in a pilot state and we do need a system change, as Andrew mentioned. We had a couple of publications recently which support that. And just to give you an idea, the rights of the River Wye give the right to representation, which means that to be represented and have these intrinsic rights recognised in the determination of matters that directly affect the river's health now and in the future. So it gives the river a voice to argue its case, to not be polluted, to be able to regenerate, etc., the right to biodiversity. Forest of Dean District Council also supported unanimously a rivers charter for the Wye and all the rivers and tributaries in the Forest of Dean. I think it should be that all councils that have a bearing on the River Wye and its health should do similarly. Of course, the big one is yet to come, which is the rights of nature, and that will represent a considerable mind shift in the relationship between people and nature. That's to come, but in the meantime, the rights of the River Wye is a good start. Of course, it has to be tested in court, maybe if there's a challenge that it feels is not in its best interests, and we see how that pans out. But in the meantime, I think that, and this is just a recommendation from me as the chair, that all councils consider having a look at this as a template. And there are template motions on the web, and see if they can follow suit, just to develop that body of support, I think, for what is one of our most important habitats. And if you just think about it, many years ago, people used to drink from the River Wye. It was that clean. We don't do so now, do we? Okay, thank you for that. If anybody has any further comments, other than that, we can move to national and local updates. Andrew.
Yeah, so a couple of updates nationally with the National Landscapes Association. I attended a lead officers meeting in Birmingham a couple of weeks ago, thrashing out our kind of direction of travel over the coming year, and always very interesting sessions with fellow lead officers. Ironically, in the bunker, basically a basement room in the heart of Birmingham with no windows and no daylight. The irony never misses us, but anyway, it's cheap and cheerful. The annual conference is in early July, so we'll actually be just before the next JAC. Some of you may have realised the JAC usually meets on the first Monday of the month, but both for this meeting today and in July, have nudged it forward a week, or nudged it on a week, because otherwise I was going to have to get from here to Norwich in a day, or from leaving the JAC try and get to Norwich that evening, which wasn't really going to work. So I will be fresh back from the national conference for the next JAC, so I'll be updating you then. Trwyddai Cymru, Landscapes Wales, we've got a very interesting piece of work at the moment, looking at the effectiveness and efficiency of national landscapes and national parks in Wales. So that will be reporting back to us, back to Trwyddai Cymru, interim results in April, and then final results in June. And that's to align really with the Senedd elections in May. So to make sure we've got some answers for the new administration, the next Welsh Government, about how we believe the national landscapes and national parks should be set up and managed and things. And as well as that, we got together a manifesto for all the parties in Wales. And I'm still currently the chair of Dryddau Cymru, but I'll be stepping down, finishing my term in June. So yeah, we'll be stepping back from that. But Catherine Neeling-Jones, who's Chief Exec at Banau Brycheiniog, she'll be taking over the chair. So we'll still have some, let's say, some South East Wales representation on that. In terms of locally, the team, the National Landscapes LEI projects are moving on well. And again, just put a little list of some of the outputs from that, which is, yeah, great work going on. So it's between sort of Whitchurch and Ross. So this is the first of 3 years of project work there. And then the Tracks and Trails strategy and steering group in the Monmouthshire part, again, inching forward, hadn't quite made as much progress as we would have liked last year, but we're now moving forwards. We've had an audit done of some key routes, unclassified county roads in Monmouthshire, and we're now taking that forward and looking to, we've done a prioritisation exercise and now looking at what are the sort of easy things to the quick wins on progressing with that, and obviously what are the challenges and how we're going to overcome those. And again, we'll be running a public meeting in the spring for that as well, to update local people. So that's just there's obviously lots more going on in the team, but I just thought there's a few key things to highlight. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Does anybody else have any comments on those? So I'm more than happy to end the meeting with the dates of the next one being the 13th of July, I believe. That's obviously after the National Conference. Does anybody have any other business? No. Jonty, yes.
Just one little update you might be interested in. The Environment, Principles, Governance and Biodiversity Wales Bill has now passed the Senedd and is waiting for our assent, which is a big move forward. It sets legally binding targets in Wales to reverse biodiversity loss, and also creates the Office for Environmental Governance Wales, which if Wales was missing, so if there is a complaint, for instance, on the habitat regulations, individuals in Wales can go to the Office of Environmental Governance and hold Welsh bodies to account.
Excellent.
Through that. So I think that's, just wanted to share that is some additional good news that is coming through.
Great, thank you very much for that. Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much for your time. Thank you to the officers and those online for making up the quorum. Have a safe journey home or to the kitchen or wherever you're going, and see you soon. And we'll keep you up to date with the Dixton report as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone.